Okay, I have now hit several record buttons, so if something doesn't take after this panel, I'm going to be pissed.
Something not take at an earlier panel?
Well, I did this panel at HarmonyCon, but I tried it with a mask on. Found myself coughing a lot through the entire presentation, and I found that very distracting / distressing. It was just the cough, I swear. But now, I want to talk about Celestia some more. I want to talk about her role in leading Equestria, which is come under fire in many occasions, mostly because she's been through the ringer. But to talk about Princess Celestia, we have to step back and get into a larger picture. We have to talk about the power of symbols, images that hold special meaning, images that convey a message, even though there's no concrete wording. And one of our oldest symbols, one of the biggest, is, well, actually I'm jumping ahead of myself, because I'm trying to describe the psychology. And I find this image is fantastic for describing it, but PowerPoint is not. So, I'm just going to bring up view full screen. This is a piece called Beneath the Surface. And I love it because this is a perfect description of, can I zoom in a little on this? There we go. It's a perfect description of the layers of consciousness. We're going to go from top down. So up there's the sky. It has clouds, the sun's rays are shining. It exists. It is the outside world. It is something beyond ourselves. And you might say, oh, that looks like a lovely day. But the sky doesn't care. The sky's not going to care if it's raining and gray, or if the world says, oh, I'm sorry I don't look that beautiful today, but tough deal. The only person who's going to remark on the beauty of the day is the sailor on that boat. That is your ego, your sense of self, the individual. And sailing along on the conscious mind, awareness. It is a perception of all that's around us. And in doing so, we start to assign meaning, like, oh, what a beautiful day. But once you go beneath the conscious mind, you enter the unconsciousness. And that is where, well, you will find monsters. You will find parts of yourself, parts that are beautiful, parts that you may consider frightening or ugly. They are all down there trying to get a message across. Especially this one shark down here. Because I see him in the corner, and it just looks like kind of pitiful. It's like, hey guys, can I get some room up there? I'm actually a sea creature. Guys. So that in and of itself, what I just showed you, this Beneath the Surface by Julie Dillon, is, well, a symbol in and of itself describing our various states of consciousness. But one of our oldest symbols, and one of the most powerful, is the Ouroboros. Some might pronounce it Ouroboros. I'm sure there's a debate, there will always be a debate on how you pronounce a really complicated word. But the thing of this relatively simple looking image is that it holds everything. All ideas are contained within this simple loop. You have birth and death. You have creation and destruction. You have a start and a finish all in one. You have intellect. Maybe I shouldn't be eating myself. Versus hedonism. This is some good snake. All of these symbols are contained within, all these ideas are contained within one symbol. And as a result, you're overloaded with information. Throwing all that in one symbol amounts to a chaos. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Discord was very serpentine in his design. A being of chaos encompasses all information and knowledge, but it's so much so that it's too much to process. It's overloading us. We need to evolve our views with time, which brings us to another symbol which we've actually seen in My Little Pony Frenchman's Magic, the Tao, yin and yang. This is meant to be the harmonious balance of opposites. You have masculine and feminine, fire and water, heat, cold, day and night. All manner of things, all symbolized by the Royal Sisters. Now, once upon a time, I'm not sure why I thought so, but if their Tao was supposed to represent a balancing of opposites, I thought, wait, shouldn't one of these royals be masculine? And because Celestia was in charge, I figured you'd have to rule 64 Princess Luna, which I would not be okay with. But the truth is that in the Tao, the white part is supposed to represent male. And I find that a little startling. So really, almost, there's something very interesting about Celestia. She is forced to represent both halves of a whole, which means she is not only conveying what many assume to be a feminine side, a classically feminine role, she's also must be the Celestia the king. Now, how is all this working? Well, let's go back to our idea of layers of consciousness. Now we're going bottom to top. At our very bottom, we have the archetypal awareness. We have this core message, this collective unconsciousness of thought, of realization, a message from ourselves to ourselves. What's happening is that the unconscious, the Ouroboros chaotic realm of all thought and information, is trying to be presented in an understandable mean. So it fires a light, and I will switch to another schema to give a better view. There we go. Down here at the bottom, it fires a light up, up, up. You can see on the left side this little bulb, so that is part of the ego, it's part of an individual's consciousness. You also notice that in this case they're using a male consciousness as an example. So the archetypal feminine has a bunch of female symbols. And no matter how you view it, a great mother, a terrible mother, well, I should say good mother or a terrible mother. Either which way, they're both part of the great mother, the all-encompassing. So this light shown from our unconsciousness, passing through the archetypal feminine, becoming the great mother, perhaps splitting off to be a terrible or a good mother, it's projected through the anima. If you identify in a male capacity, then there's an element in your mind of the feminine, or everyone says the hidden feminine side, that's your anima. If you identify as female, and then you have an animus, a segment of your mind that is masculine. And I will fully admit, Jungian psychology started off very binary. Jung himself was very sexist. The idea of a woman wearing pants would terribly upset him. I can only imagine what bronies would have done to him. But either which way, oh yeah, he'd be out of it. Then there's your ego on the plane of consciousness. And when we shoot this light out all the way through these filters, it takes the form of beings in our history. You have Isis, a goddess, and Sophia, and remember the Gorgon, also known as Medusa, who could turn others to stone, a destructive feminine. Linked to the terrible mother. Well, Sophia and Isis, both figures in mythology, are linked to the good mother. So let's talk about Celestia's role as a king. I mentioned that, to my surprise, she actually represents a great deal of masculinity in this relationship. Her role is very much a structure, an architect. And yet, because of Luna's banishment, Celestia suddenly had to pull double duty. She had to be both king and queen, fulfilling this role. In doing so, Celestia could be best summarized as Equestria's struggling single parent. So while everyone dumps on her, really you're thinking, hey, wait a minute, do you realize everything she's trying to do?
I'm so proud of you, Twilight Sparkle, and I'm very impressed with your friends as well. It sounds like you're all learning so much from each other.
Thank you, Princess.
Now, unfortunately, because the two of you were busy tricking each other instead of shaking down leaves, many of the lovely trees in Equestria are still covered. I'm afraid mischievous little Philomena here took the occasion to have a little fun with you, Fluttershy. Say you're sorry, young lady. And I do appreciate that your heart was in the right place, child. But all you had to do was ask me, and I could have told you Philomena was a phoenix and saved you all this trouble. I'll forget Twilight's punishment on one condition.
Princess.
From this day forth, I would like you all to report to me your findings on the magic of friendship. When, and only when, you happen to discover them. Your friend Spike made me aware that you were letting your fears get the best of you. I commend him for taking your feelings seriously.
Yes, one of the big things about a king is the idea of, well, they're the father figure. A really good king is a really good father, and that doesn't mean that they are always likable. Within every king there is somewhat that tyrannical shadow. You know, as a kid, when you ask why 50 times, at some point a father will likely say, because I said so, which is not a great answer, but it is part of the structure. They are the lawmaker. They are the ones who create the structure of life. They are meant to recognize and reward positive actions, and also to recognize and punish negative actions. Now, in a lot of those clips we saw of Celestia, she has a great tactic for letting a situation play out, and when it seems like it's bad, she turns it into a lesson. Applejack and Rainbow Dash are tearing into each other during Fall Weather Friends. She just encourages them to go and finish what they missed the first time, as friends. Twilight's late with a report and drives the whole town crazy in less than zero. Lo and behold, Celestia comes, fixes the curse, and while she could have punished Twilight, she instead saw it as a great way to evolve the structure. She gave them all an assignment, and in doing so, helped them all grow as individuals. And she gave special props to Spike for taking Twilight's feelings seriously, recognizing and rewarding his observation, and basically holding him up as an example of what Twilight's friends did not successfully do during that episode. And that's because as a king, or at least fulfilling a role classically assigned as the king, Celestia is a creator of structure and order. But then comes the other problem. She must now deal with a land that is bereft of an emotional guide.
But after Luna's banishment, the protective pony platoons were formed. Every pony was so filled with amazement and wonder that General Firefly dubbed them her Wonderbolts.
The Equestria Education Association is a board of learned ponies that oversee every school in Equestria. Not even a princess can do whatever she likes when it comes to shaping young pony minds.
The princesses never do all the ceremony planning by themselves.
They don't?
Goodness, no. That's what the gala planning committees are for.
Now, there are a bunch of clips of, again, Celestia creating order and structure. She creates a new defense organization because she has lost her sister. Suddenly, they can't be the guardians of Equestria as they were. She has to respond, and the first thing she does is build a new military component, which leads to the birth of the Wonderbolts and Rainbow Dash's dream. She also willfully abdicates some power to the equestrian school system, acknowledging that even a princess can't just say, everyone be like this. She's actually welcoming and creating a structure that is meant to nurture minds. Now, it doesn't work as intended. We saw how they behaved in Season 8, and but even then, Celestia found ways to point out this problem and change it from within. Rather than wiping it out, she finds ways to commend positive action and give them a chance to reform, to correct the wrong. But as a queen, Celestia is faced with a perhaps more intangible problem, the emotional growth and development of her subjects. The queen archetype is the Great Mother. Once upon a time, the focus was on the land as a mother figure, but then civilizations evolved with a patriarchal design, so the leadership became the king who is wed to the land. But that also led to a great deal of abuse. But a queen archetype is a mother who cares and nurtures all. Basically being fully in the now and aligning with life itself, to be present in that moment, undistracted by fears or concerns. And it's telling that Luna, throughout this series, was portrayed dreamwalking, helping ponies consider what was bothering them, what their futures were like, trying to get them to let go of fears or to recognize why they are afraid so that they can deal with it. It's unknown how Celestia handled that with Luna's absence, because the goal of the Queen is to help her subjects, her children, grow emotionally and become fully fledged individualized adults. But there's a problem. We can come into the elementary mother versus the transformative mother. Elementary mother is what you might describe by biological functions. They carry a child, they birth the child, they nurture the child. However, there's nothing that says that they have to let go. That In many cases, what we will call the consuming mother will hold a child back and try to disrupt their growth, or just to wipe it out, to keep them close. Whereas a transformative mother realizes that they must let go, they must let their child go out into the world and become an individualized adult. And they should do all they can to help promote that transformation, like Celestia has. Characteristic mother, provide for the young, but it's a gravitational force on the spirit. We saw this very heavily with Sprout in G5. He was so emotionally stunted by his mother, who wanted him loyal and close and submissive to her will, that even when he tries to break free in a rather explosive bit of destructive energy, she intimidates him back into, well, cowardice. And in doing so, I guess that's the tragedy of Sprout. He never breaks free of that influence. In a darker scenario, medics in the Vietnam War would talk about the men lying wounded and dying, calling for their mothers. Because as the will of an individual weakens, that call, that pull from the mother figure they remember in childhood becomes stronger. It's probably the last element holding down. And that's not to say that these men were weak. It is not to say that they were somehow failing at being men. It means that everything that had happened had stripped their will so low, they were barely holding on to life, and they called out for the most redemptive and protective power they knew, their mothers. But a consuming mother can take on many forms. I don't think it's too hard to imagine Chrysalis as an all-consuming mother. In fact, she's pretty forthright about it.
By replacing the most beloved figures in Equestria, my drones will be able to store all the love meant for them and return it here, to me. Every pony will do as I command, and my subjects and I will feed on their love for generations!
Feeding on that love for generations, pretty explicit consuming mother. But notice that she's saying this, that all her drones, not children, will bring the love back to her. It all really comes down to her. While she may say that she's providing for her young, really it's all about her desires, her wants, and her power structure, which is all self-centered. But there are other ways that you may encounter a consuming mother, like Queen Novo, who sadly did not enjoy a very positive showing in the Friendship is Magic movie. But again, remember that the consuming mother is going to retard growth. She is going to resist venturing into the outside world.
And you can't just hide down here, trapped forever? There's so much you're missing.
We are 100% okay with that.
Really now? 100% okay. Did you poll your subjects? Did you ask them if they're okay with this?
They cut that scene.
If they cut that scene, that changes Novo's presentation immensely. It also probably keeps us from... I know, but just imagine for a minute the poll line. Say, are you happy underwater? Slap one shell for yes, slap the other shell for no. Wait, is that where Skystar got her friends? Oh, she sabotaged the vote. But basically, as much as Novo is doing this out of a desire for protection, she is still becoming the consuming mother. She is still holding everyone so close that they have no room to grow, no chance to test their courage, and no chance to experience the outside world. It's more understandable than Queen Chrysalis, but at the end of the day, they're stuck becoming a negative force on their subjects. Now, what about the non-consuming mother? Well, it's all about learning to let go, letting the child leave the nest, go forth, and in fact, sometimes you gotta push them out.
I saw the signs of Nightmare Moon's return, and I knew it was you who had the magic inside to defeat her. But you could not unleash it until you let true friendship into your heart. What if she runs into a manticore? Or what if she gets pulled into Tartarus? Or worst of all, what if she doesn't get along with any pony? Oh. I must send her away.
So there it is. At the start of the series, it seemed like Celestia really had it together on all fronts. She knew exactly what Twilight needed to do. She knew that she had to tell Twilight, stop looking in those dusty old books and go make some friends. But then we find out the storm going on inside her. There's the consuming mother in there, wanting to keep Twilight close and safe, even if it means she won't go on this adventure. But looking at what happens when you don't address a wound, looking at what happens with one of probably the greatest failure in her life, Celestia knows she can't hold on to Twilight. She has to let her go. Let her become a full-fledged, individualized pony. But also, she has to recognize that she can't provide the growth that Twilight needs. She's not going to find it in the library. She's not going to find it in their lessons, no matter how complex. Celestia knows her limits and recognizes the scope of her ability, which is going to come in very helpful and very critical as we talk about some of the low points in her career. But first we have to talk about her as a transformative mother. Remember, this is a union. We have order and structure represented by Celestia, emotional growth and health represented by Luna. When you can combine them, in basic archetypal terms, when the great king and the great queen, the mother, come together, they create the prophesied child, who in turn grows up to lead and nurture another soul. Twilight becomes the best of both Celestia and Luna, as she becomes her own style of alicorn. A very tall style of alicorn. Very tall.
No longer little.
No, now I'm a large-sized pony.
I'm more worried about that little piece around her neck, that sharp edge.
Oh, that sharp edge, yeah, if you look at this thing, I'm always worried about that middle. If she leans down, she's going to get a puncture mark.
Oh, is it sharpened or is it just, because it doesn't look too sharp?
It looks sharp.
I hope it's not sharpened, but I'm hoping Rarity got something where it like slides with Twilight.
It's the secret of what happened to Twilight between Generation 4 and Generation 5.
The ultimate wardrobe malfunction.
Yeah.
All right, but in terms of self-understanding, Celestia knows her own strengths and weaknesses. As a queen must be, a tough mother, you have to know your strengths and your weaknesses, know what you're capable of, know what you need help, and check the ego at the door because you need to acknowledge this is beyond the scope of my abilities.
If hatred and fear take hold,
now that's a very telling scene about Celestia right there. Hatred and fear, and she switches to dark magic instantly. Now, hatred and fear, what does she hate? Probably herself, for the mistakes she's made, for the students who didn't make it, for what happened to Luna. Fear, well, we saw that she could fear for Twilight Sparkle. She doesn't deny having these emotions. If anything, she channels them as a means to teach her student. But it shows that she's aware of her own fallibilities and weaknesses. She presents the image of a perfect princess, but she knows that she has, well, the full range of emotions of any individual. Some might call that clay feet. I call it being genuine. She also knows her worst aspects. That's why she can channel dark magic, but also step away from it. She's learned, I think, to balance those feelings within her. But then we reach this problem. Celestia kind of has a bad track record.
The Queen of the Hippo!
Bit of a glass jaw.
Well, okay. With Chrysalis, one may be surprised that Celestia was even startled that she was losing, because Chrysalis had a power boost so great even she couldn't believe it.
She countered it again another time, but she didn't even show.
Because now she learned the value of the cheap shot. So Celestia always seems to be, well, captured, stoned, imprisoned, all these things. And you gotta ask, why do they keep picking on Celestia this way? Why is she a runner-up to Princess Peach in the damsel department? Well, and I say this as someone, I grew up where a lot of video games were about rescue the damsel. Why is that? Why is the young hero always on a quest I'm on a never-ending quest to save my girlfriend? Well, the idea here is that often in stories, a powerful feminine figure is linked to the land. She is representative of the land. If she is in danger, if her freedoms are being oppressed, then so too are the land. Celestia is the land. So Equestria can't be in danger if Celestia herself is not in danger. By a similar notion, when the feminine figure who represents the land accepts the hero, welcomes them perhaps in a romantic or perhaps just acknowledges their contributions to that land, that is a symbol of the land accepting the hero. Problem with this is that it ignores the feminine figure as an individual and character, which is where I think a lot of the frustration of the damsel in distress comes into play.
Well, you know where some of that came from, right?
I'm sorry?
You know where some of that first came into big popularity. After they had the plagues and the Crusades, they had all these men who had gone off to war, and they had a lot of women and not that many men. So there was a major aspect, a cultural aspect of a narrative crafting that damsel in distress story, and there was a lot of oppression that occurred against women as a backlash to women taking these jobs because there weren't men to take them. And so this. Our medieval, it's just that classic fairy tale damsel in distress story.
Yeah.
That one
well,
really just took hold.
But also, by having the women in those fairy tales in trouble, it displayed the problem of the land. Plague, violence, basically a breakdown of the structure and order that people want to believe in. So that is a reflection. And women became the symbolic, partly because they were not being dealt a fair hand at all in real life.
Yeah,
so,
definitely I can go back to the Greek stories.
Okay.
Exactly what you're talking about here.
Right. So, but here's the thing. Again, Celestia knows her limits. She knows what she can and cannot handle. There's always going to be a curveball, like with fighting Chrysalis the very first time. And there are plenty of curveballs to follow. But Celestia has always managed to create a hidden army. Rather than a standing army, which can actually be a detriment to yourself, she finds ways to empower others to handle what's to come.
Although Luna and I once wielded the elements, it is you who now control their power, and it is you who must defeat Discord. Good luck, my little ponies. The fate of Equestria is in your hooves, and your Ponyville friends will join you there as well. I have every confidence you will succeed. I realize that this is a tall order, but I wouldn't ask if I weren't confident you could get him to use magic obediently of his own free will.
And you really think I'll know best how to do that?
I do. We will do what we can, but you must hurry.
Luna, quick! Go south, beyond the Badlands. Seek help.
So there you go. Often her plans involve the main six. But she also gave Luna the chance to go south to the hippogriffs. Didn't work out because, hey, again, curveball, petrification ball heading your way. It was a curve shot. But she knows in that instance they need a standing army. So who has an army? The hippogriffs. Why send Luna? Because, well, Queen Novo, I think Celestia knew that Queen Novo would not be easily persuaded, that she needed someone who could address her fears and get her to stop being a consuming mother. Luna may have been the best choice for that. Twilight wasn't ready. However, and unfortunately for the princesses, it all came down to Twilight, so things didn't work out quite as planned. However, Celestia's also invested a lot of time in supporting Twilight and her friends and nurturing their growth as a mother figure. and as a king, officially commissioning them. I love that whole dubbing scene with her horn. So even though Celestia may be captured a lot, she's never out of play. She's always got someone there to back up, someone the villain hasn't acknowledged, respected, considered as an enemy. And as a result, there is victory, but Celestia's role is always a bit downplayed. That's why she may be hypercritical. We as a fandom may criticize her, very hypercritical.
Yes, another part is also like with the season 4 finale, like, oh, she had Discord at the ready to take on Tyrek, and when that failed, she already had the idea of giving all their magic to Twilight, someone that Tyrek had no idea about. Sadly, she left out the big stained glass window.
She left out the stained glass window. I would say that the conclusion of season 4 was probably her weakest planning. I mean, there's a lot of things I just don't understand about why she did it. And one could argue, oh, she wanted to have the lesson of Twilight choosing to save her friends as a test. But more and more, I just see it as she was really reacting very poorly to changes in the plan, and that doesn't feel like a genuine Celestia. It felt like they were doing all they could to get her off the screen as quickly as possible. So, and that's the debate about Celestia. How much of this is planned? How much of this is just dumb luck? But she's always looked to other ponies to fix the problem rather than a military force.
Missing shiny armor and cadence that she sent to deal with Cassandra the first time.
Well, not to deal with, but to halt his advance.
But still, they're part of the hidden army.
They're part of the hidden army.
Everybody forgets Cadence.
Well, mostly because, unfortunately, she was shown sitting on the throne for most of it. But yes, Cadence doesn't always get the recommendations. But she sent Shining Armor Cadence as a vanguard, follow up with the main 6, and give Twilight another lesson in time. So, this is the hidden army. I find it kind of funny. You know Nightmare Moon is going to come back, and she's likely going to start with the old ruins as her base, or because the elements are there. Most countries would build a fortress with a full station garrison ready to go. But then after the conflict, assuming you win, well, you've now got a fortress with an army. What are you going to do with it? Celestia built a town and looked to that town for the right relationships for which Twilight could grow and face the challenge. It's a very innovative, but I'm not sure how practical. I don't think you could apply that so easily to our world, unless you were a very creative individual. Now we're getting to a very complicated, they call these schemas. And boy, I can understand if you feel intimidated looking at this, because there's a lot to take in. So let me try to break this down as best I can. At the top, you have a positive feminine figure, F+. It's the only time an F+ is a good thing. At the bottom, you have negative feminine figures. So F-, always a bad thing. F-, well, honestly, I feel like you have to try to get that bad a score.
Why are witches bad things?
Uh-oh.
Well, it depends on your perception. In England, or I guess I should say most European, witch can just be magical practitioner. It's not inherently negative. Here in America, our culture tends to view that as the wicked witch, the evil witch, the negative factor. There's no, well, okay, there's Gleda the good witch, but it's often more associated with negativity. So, but then let's see, on the left side, you have mother figures in, well, how can I best put this? This is mothers concerned with raising things. On the right side is the transformative factor. Up towards the positive feminine, you have the good mother and the positive transformative character. And down below, you have the negative transformative and the terrible mother. They're standing at polar opposites. So I was mistaken saying it's left side and right side. It's basically two axes. So let's start with just the center of this, like a bullseye, and we'll go outward by each ring. You have the elementary character, the mother who contains, carries the child in her womb. A lot of pottery is decorated to imply this. It is a carrying jug. Remember the Da Vinci Code that the Holy Grail was in fact the womb. Well, I'm going to spoil it because it's been decades. It is the resting place of Mary, who carried Jesus' child. So a cup, a container, a holder. So
I was going to get around to reading that book any day now. It was just waiting years for it.
Well, I saved you time. Then there's the transformation. And it depends on the axes of which the character rests. A good mother will bear and release the child into the world. A positive transforming character will be very giving and provide the child with education, with toys to spur the imagination, with play dates so that they can meet and socialize with others. Whereas a terrible mother will hold fast and ensnare the child, keeping them close and making sure they're only focusing their love towards the mother. The Dursleys of Harry Potter are a fine example of this.
Mother Gothel.
I have two voices at once. What?
Mother Gothel.
Mother Gothel. I need to remind you. Oh, okay. Truth be told, I never saw the full Tangled movie. But yes, she is also a consuming mother. And then a negative transformative will actually reject the child and deprive them of stimulus. Trying to, well, basically just, not even love, just you're a burden, but I'm not going to invest the time in you. As we go to the transformative stage, that's the development. A good mother will see their child birth, grow up, grow strong, make sure they're wise and healthy. The transformative character will, well, create a transformative sublimation. The child will undergo a change and become transformative. Cadence raising Twilight. Her role as a babysitter is that of a transformative character. The negative, terrible mother will feature diminution, making the child smaller, making them feel isolated and unable to fit the world. They are only safe in the custody of their all-consuming mother, which is also devouring. Or there's the transformation disillusion from the negative transformative character. She's basically trying to strip away any sense of self, trying to undo any growth. Starlight Glimmer, in her introduction, when she was in her town with the negative key marks, that could be a negative transformative character. Now we go to the outer circles, where the good mother encourages the vegetation mysteries, and I don't think that's considering the peas on your plate. More like you understand growth, you understand the mysteries of life and understanding. You begin to grasp things beyond yourself, a full appreciation of the outside world. Just as the positive transformation character will have inspiration mysteries. You discover those untapped creative potentials, the wonder of feeling when you create something new, the drive as you get into the flow of a new process or skill set. That is what the transformative figure can do. But with the terrible mother, you get the death mysteries. You are experiencing dismemberment, death, extinction, sickness. You stop growing. You are basically a failed adult, and there's just a broken child. And while a person can be accountable for their actions, it's also true that if they're hindered at the start, it's a hard journey to grow. Then there's the negative transformative character, who may offer ecstasy as a temptation, like the enjoyment our town had as they danced and chanted. But there's also a certain madness and an impotence as they are afraid to go against the collective. They can't express themselves as an individual, which leads to a certain impotence or stupor. They're stuck, which again, Starlight's cult at the beginning of season 5 really drives this home. And now, as we go to the outer circles, we begin to try to peg down symbols in our history, in our mythologies, that represent these various things. The good mother of Isis, Demeter, Mary, they are all great mother figures. Meanwhile, another Mary, possibly also the Virgin Mary, Sophia and the Muses are positive transformative characters. They bring the creative unknown into the world and nurture others to seek it as well. The terrible mother, which is where the old witch comes in, which is why we use that term, I think mostly, especially here in America. Old witch, you know, the old hag. But we have the Gorgon, Hecate, and Kali. Kali, who I believe devoured her own children to keep them close. And then over on the very negative, you have Lilith, the first woman and first wife of Adam, who did not turn out so great. Cersei, and I don't think they just mean Lannister.
This one's better.
This one's better. Oh, that's Cersei's better. Well, by comparison, you know, blow up a sept. You're not so bad as that lady. Now, it's interesting that they say the young witch, but this is in the idea of a temptress, of someone who is trying to sway and change you to their line of thinking so that you stop thinking. So I realize this is a lot to take in. I mean, you can call this a schema. I call this a word canon. It takes a while to explain, and truth be told, I'm offering the best explanation I can based on a limited study. I should point out the book I relied on for this, The Great Mother, is about yay thick. You could use this thing as an offensive weapon. Bust some heads. And, well, we've got about 15 minutes left. This is my last panel of Whinny City 2022. So I would love to answer as many questions as we can, try to gain clarity into all this. So, or perhaps there's a female figure you recall who seemed like a great representation of a great mother, a great caregiver, a great guide and leader. In some ways, I will bring up Game of Thrones and Catelyn Stark. She was very transformative of her first son, Robb, trying to get him to become a king. Especially in the books, they talk about how she can simultaneously get him to see what he needs to do to change his mind in a situation, but she can't publicly scold or chastise him. That would weaken his status. So she learns just the right way to say things to get him to think about it. But conversely, she's also the consuming mother in that her fear for her daughters, who are hostages, she sabotages, goes against Robb, and in doing so undermines him in a different way and perhaps sets the stage for, well, tragedy. So both aspects are struggling within her. And again, I'm not going to say she's a terrible mother for what she does. I'm going to say she's a consuming mother for her drive overriding a desire to help Robb grow. Dreadhair, could I trouble you? I need some more water. Otherwise I'm going to be coughing all over again.
Okay.
Thank you.
How dare you need normal human beings?
I dare very well. Thank you for asking.
Victoria fall on the scale.
Victoria? Let's see.
Toriel.
Toriel. Oh, from Undertale. I would say she was a great mother. Now, again, she was oh boy, okay, who here has not played Undertale? Okay, you particularly don't get to complain about spoilers then. Fine. Now, does anyone mind if I give some spoilers for Undertale? It's been out for a while. This game was a very clever twist on role-playing games, because normally you would slay an enemy that blocked your way, but the slaying is actually a fast track to the negative ending. And that's especially hard with Toriel, who she becomes the mother of the player character. Nurturing, providing safety, she is becoming the characteristic mother. But when the player wants to advance into the world, Toriel bars the way. In this way, she's becoming a consuming mother. And as you learn later, there's a reason for it. That her own child was destroyed and corrupted by a child from the outside world. And so she's simultaneously trying to make up for that lost child and redeem the outside world by keeping them close. It's it's not very surprising that Toriel is presented as this very big character with she's got big tracts of land. It is all to create this very consuming wraparound figure. You can't do that with a stick-like figure. Now, if you use the pacifist route, which requires a great deal more patience and innovation, she will let you go. She will recognize that she can't hold you. If you, especially unwittingly, follow the aggressive route, as many of us would, based just on the game, you slay her. And she does not begrudge or hate you for it. In fact, I believe in several mythologies, slaying the Great Mother is how you gain the chance to go out into the world and find another, a woman who will become a mother to your children. So, slaying the parents, definitely glad it's in the mythological and not a how-to, but surpassing the old. But again, if your first action to greet the world is with violence, well, guess what follows? So, I would say Toriel is definitely a characteristic mother. She runs the risk of being the consuming mother until the very end, where she will accept the transformative aspect. And, well, in that case, she just has to let go. You may all quote Frozen in your heads. Logan.
Molly Weasley.
Molly Weasley. Oh, boy. Poor Molly. Okay, Harry Potter fans. Let me see them hands. It's okay. Don't worry. Liking the work does not mean you agree with the author on all things.
Yes.
So, Molly is terrified of losing her kids in this war. It's pointed out very overtly several times, especially with a Bogart in her closet, taking on the form of her children slain in battle. And she's having a breakdown. And she faces this. She's confronted with this horror. The thing is, I believe that she is a good transformative mother because she still lets her kids go to Hogwarts. Even though Ron encounters near-death experiences every year, somehow she still lets him go back. I gotta say, those parent-teacher conferences have gotta be awkward. Well, your son seems to be struggling in apparitions. You know what else he's struggling with? To breathe. Because you have vines that choke all your students. Oh, how about the time you put him at the bottom of a lake? So we're going to waive your tuition this year? Damn right you are.
Well, she also basically adopted Harry.
She also adopted Harry, and fear of losing him was also a factor. But she never tried to keep them, though she was very, very afraid for their safety and their lives. She never tried to hold them so close they never grew. She realized the need for their transformation, even if it meant changing through the fire of war.
So, with Glenlam, when she started out as a consuming mother with her little village and like trying to control them, what does it mean when she does the redemption story in this?
Well, she herself is redeemed, and it's telling that she starts becoming a counselor before becoming a head mayor. She lets go of the our town. I mean, she's not trying to be the leader again. She lets them find their own way now. And instead now she uses her own experience as a teacher. This is the crone archetype. It is someone who tried to become the great mother, the goddess, the queen, didn't get to where she wanted. But based on that, she can still pass that knowledge on to new, young hopefuls. She's very much in the same archetype as Princess Luna.
Brilliant. Since we're on the subject of crones and witches, I want to see where one of my favorite Terry Pratchett characters falls in all this. Granny Weatherwax.
Granny Weatherwax. Okay. Unfortunately, I haven't read the Granny Weatherwax novels in Discworld, but you've told me about how she's very sharp-tongued, telling the reader, look, the stars don't give a damn about your wishes, and there's no force that's going to just magically solve things for you.
She is the embodiment of the trope, good is not nice.
Good is not nice, but how protective is she?
Quite a bit.
Quite a bit. See, that can be, as much as that might be rooted in positive action or positive motives, it may have a negative outcome. It's a question of whether she lets a character go to face their challenges that will really show she's transformative and the good mother. So I would have to look up some more stuff on Discworld to understand that.
I know we were using Jungian tactics, but what about one of Freud's favorites, Jocasta?
Jocasta.
Oedipus.
Well, oh, okay, there we go. Because I was having much Jocasta. It's weird. I feel like I know a Star Trek character, a Star Wars character named that.
There is the librarian.
Jocasta. Oh, wow. No child one. I want. You don't date the librarian. I remember.
I resemble that remark.
Unless you're goofy.
Yep. Okay, so Jocasta, she's the mother of Oedipus. He doesn't know that.
And she doesn't either.
She doesn't either. Well, in so many ways, Oedipus is fated. They're told that he's going to do this to his mother. And his mother seems, well, I don't think there's a lot of love between her and Oedipus' father. And I bet there's a great deal of Roman culture that I'm not aware that influences the story. But the fact that she immediately weds the man who killed her husband sounds more like a power play than any sort of genuine emotion.
It wasn't because he killed her husband, it was because he defeated the Sphinx that was holding their village captive.
But then, she wouldn't have married him while her husband was alive, though. So she got on board with the winning team, or the perceived strongest. And here's one thing I do know. As part of the oppression women had over time, they married not just young, but disturbingly young. So when Oedipus was born, his mother was, I don't think, even out of her teens. And so when he grew up, she was still in her full prime, and probably very attractive. But given that she switches over to Oedipus when the first chance arises, I get the sense she would have been more of a negative transformative mother. And well, I think Oedipus would agree. As boy, he took the news hard. You got to keep an eye on him.
Because he can't on himself.
There you go. Yes. So, Ellen Ripley from Aliens, since that seems to be a kind of a commentary people have laid on that movie, is that with her nude specifically. Just Aliens, not Aliens 3.
Oh man, Aliens 3.
We don't talk about that.
We do not speak.
I'm sorry, did somebody just say Bruno?
We don't talk about Alien 3.
We don't talk about Alien 3.
Well, in a lot of ways, the alien mother, the queen, she's the negative transformative character, and a consuming mother. I mean, she's looking out for her brood, but look at how they procreate. And the wound she has inflicted on Newt. Newt is far older than she should be, mentally now. Ellen shows the characteristic mother in cleaning her up, helping her speak again, taking care of her, and building a connection. And I remember in the commentary, Sigourney Weaver and I forget the name of the girl who played Newt, they formed a bond on set. They got along fabulously, which really enhanced their relation in the movie. I think Ripley would have become a positive character had she been able to stay with Newt and keep raising her, help her leave that behind, but also teach her, well, how to fight, how to protect yourself if this should come up again. You've survived by the narrowest of margins. Now you train so you can survive better. Sarah Connor, boy, again, when you get to good is not nice, but she did everything she could to transform her son, to get him ready, and to let him go to face that destiny. And then we had Terminator, Dark Genesis, the resalvation of the reboot, of the repeat of the pre-sequel. And yeah, we don't talk about that either.
There's a lot of IPs from them that we should just stop at 2 and forget anything that comes second.
It certainly feels that way. Yes.
First off, that film that we don't talk about. That you can thank Sigourney Weaver for that because she was saying if I'm doing another Alien movie, I want these things there. Second off, or the actual point. What about the mother figure, historical figure, Alexander the Great's mother?
I'm afraid my knowledge of Alexander the Great is limited to him undoing the knot.
Did a lot of work to try and get him into power, and was grooming him for them, and going so far as having assassinating people to get him in there. So I said, oh yeah, he got into power all on his own. No, Mom had a lot to do with it.
Offhand, and I know this is a strange comparison, that sounds a bit like the Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah, kind of is comparable.
I think the big question is, she trained him, but did she train him to be her puppet, in leadership?
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with it as I probably should be talking about it, but the part that I do know about is yeah, she was a very, very strong presence.
So she may have been a characteristic mother in providing care and education, but a negative transformative character in her efforts to get him to power as long as he follows her orders. That's my first impression. I would need to learn more before I can really weigh in on this. Muffin Mare. Sprite.
Sprout.
Oh, Sprout. Oh, yes. Well, with Phyllis. Oh, yeah. Most definitely a negative transformative mother and a consuming mother. She doesn't want her boy going anywhere without her permission, talking to anyone without her permission. And, well, we see it in her introduction when she's telling her son, I told you not to go over that. Pony's going to brainwash you. I think Argyle got probably the best burn in the whole movie, saying that's your job.
So, neat little thing about that encounter, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I couldn't find it a coincidence that when they're doing their little role play at the very beginning of the movie, of all the ponies Sprout could have chosen to be the bad guy, he chose the one that is most like his mother.
Rarity is most like Phyllis?
And being the fashionista, because that's pretty much what her business is.
Being a
functionality combined with
powerful businesswoman. Well, okay, I can see on their very surface level. I mean, look at Phyllis owns a very powerful factory and production line that is fashion oriented. Well, nuts to you too. Okay, it ran out of power. Oh, wow! It is. Well, okay. I'm just gonna abuse the system for a few more seconds. But yeah, on the surface, there are a lot of similarities. But Rarity, well, we never got to see her as a mother figure. I found it very telling that she just simply laughed and refused to care for Pound and Pumpkin. I don't think having children is very high on her list.
Most we really got was her and Sweetie Pie, which that had a lot of problems too.
So there's a great deal of dysfunction there, but I'm not ready to write Rarity off as she would have been a consuming mother.
No,
I think
she could be something that he might see as.
Yes, if he's
young enough.
Yes, Sprout is not looking very deep. So if he knows that Rarity was a powerful, successful businesswoman, he might see her as a proxy for his mom. And boy, you want to talk Oedipus complex then. All right, well, everyone, as my GoPro has apparently told me, I'm out of time. Thank you so much for coming to my panel. Thank you for talking with me and sharing your thoughts. It's been a great Whinny City, and I'm looking forward to next year. But I hope you'll join us in the charity auction as well.